So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining me this afternoon for my talk as part of the Substance Memory Exhibition. For those that don't know me, my name is Emily, and I'm doing my Master of Visual Arts at ECU here. This exhibition culminates part of my creative practice for this course. So basically, I'd just like to give a brief overview of my research questions and my research. The questions that drive my and inform my practice of research are basically, how is new media altering traditional notions of the family archive, and what effect might this have on the performance memory? My second question is, in what way might creative praxis use installation art to illuminate the participatory engagement with family archive materiality to mediate analyze processes? So these photographs, videos and objects are from my own family's archives dating back to the 1900s. They have an emotional resonance to me because it's my family, it's my history and my story. Yet from the beginning of this project, it was always a concern for me to produce a work that the audience could also situate themselves into and relate to on some level. This practice-led research employs a reflexive methodology to generate a dialogue between myself as researcher, subject and creative practitioner. I agree with Kim Evans when he suggests that reflexivity opens up the space between subjectivity and objectivity. The inclusion of myself in the work is now supported as intentional and supplementary element, whilst establishing boundaries to avoid self-indulgence, naivety and narcissism. Reflexivity provides me the skills to situate myself inside and outside my praxis, and in order to critically analyse it from both positions. So, this project basically began as a photographic project, whereby I was really just started to be interested in using analog photography and traditional and alternative archiving processes to reproduce these archives somehow. However, this practice has evolved considerably. It's now a series of installations that integrates a large array of archives, new media and photography. So I believe this better reflects and supports my theoretical concerns of my research. So I'd just like to use this artist's talk instead of bogging down all the theory, just to kind of go through a few of the works and basically how they intersect with my research and how the works have basically come to this point. If you have any questions, I'll leave some time at the end so we can go back through some questions if you have anything to ask. So I'll just begin with the work right in front of us. Basically it's titled Online Archives of Family Objects. So the objects that you can see here are personal items from members of my family, wedding dresses, glasses and outfits that have all been kept over time in order to preserve memory. Their tangible status is obvious. They have a weight and a sentimental past. Their physicality reminds us of their existence. Their presence on the table with careful folding reminds us of their precious nature and status as collectibles. I've then photographed these objects and presented them in a more formal museum-style context to reference the changing platforms and access of archives due to media. So museums, galleries, governments and institutions are all progressively moving their archives online, which greatly enhances our access to these archives globally. However, the way we experience them has changed. The experience of the archive has just shifted to an intangible object access through the screens of our personal devices. To view these archives, we are now mediated by screens that are dictated such as internet speed, screen resolution, colour and size. The relationship that we have with these images on the screen, although detailed and they provide information of the object, they are far removed from the object that's physically in front of us. When combined with the QR codes, audience is now faced with the interesting dilemma of wanting to view the object more, but being restricted by the app required to view the online galleries, to view the objects in more detail. Our access of these archives do not exist without software that will scan the barcode and link to the online gallery. And by doing so, it highlights the way that we are mediated by these technologies and devices to access our archives and ultimately our memories. So let's move on to the next bit, which is the photo series behind me here. These photographs were reproduced from my father's 35mm slides. They were scanned and then digitally edited. My father passed away in 1997, so he's not here to tell the story of these images. To me, these photographs have become open, unresolved texts that provide nothing more than an indexical relationship to a moment in time. These photographs evolved originally from trying to create a video where I wanted to quickly fill in the background and then separate the layers and move into the the image of the video. However, when I separated the layers, there was something about that background image that had an uneasy presence about the empty landscape void of substance in terms of its value as an object for remembrance. We are reminded in this work that by digital technologies it's so easy to manipulate the past, alter histories and erase memories. They are presented in dictative format as I believe that they are more successful working like this than they are on their own. It's this kind of before and after contrast to know what is missing and I guess to contemplate why you would remove the subject matter and the purpose of doing so. So this kind of links next to the work just over on the tablet screens over here, which is called Displacement. They're 4 short videos. These have a similar theme here where they're displayed on a 7-inch tablet screens. They're created from analogue photographs and transformed into moving videos using Adobe After Effects and a tool called Displacement. So by fusing these analogue and digital mediums, we're reminded again of how easy it is to manipulate the past. These once static photographs have shifted to mere representations of the past. They are moments that never existed in moving form and never occurred like that, it was just a still image. Western society has transformed into an explicitly visual world. With the surge in digital cameras and the emergence of social media, sites such as Flickr, YouTube, etc. The surge in digital cameras and the emergence of social media sites such as Flickr, Facebook, YouTube. The increased interaction between humans and computers has generated the ability to control our images at an ever-increasing speed and mobility. We are bombarded with a multiplicity of screens in our everyday life, and this work, along with online archives of family objects, aims to just introduce some of these ideas, whilst explicitly highlighting the mediation by screens and devices to store, access, control, and narrate our past. So, kind of sums up, this work here basically grew from the photographs that I found as I was going through this. There was a bunch of images that just had handwritten notes on the back of them, and I thought it was really interesting separating them from the front of the image and just reflecting on the way that we narrate our images in the albums and record our narratives that are connected to the photograph. So that's just a small piece that I was just playing around with to introduce that text element into the work, which I thought was really interesting. Getting the characters of people and trying to decipher who wrote them the stories and where they come from. So that's really where that part draws interest for me. So there's a few other bigger works in the back gallery, so if we all just move through over that, we can go through them. Big to record to negotiate, and there is also another audio piece down the corridor. You haven't had the chance to see that yet. But basically, the audio piece down the corridor is titled I Forget Now, which is a series of 5 short audio fragments taken from the voice recordings between my mother and my grandmother. These recordings took place in order for my mother to record my grandma's life, whose memory is deteriorating from Alzheimer's. And I suppose in some way it was an attempt to try to prompt and assist her memory. The fragility of memory is evident, whereby my grandma struggles to remember many details about significant moments of her life. Yet, when she does start talking, there are memories that do start coming flooding back.
Yeah. Remember when we cleared his room out? All those little pots of coins and things like that. Tins of coins.
And if he's got owe something, he'd put something else in, a screw or something. He did that, right?
The way that we narrate our lives has fundamentally shifted due to digital technologies and new media. So by connecting these audio pieces with a photograph, it reinforces the relationship between narrative and photography. In a way, it also reflects on the way that we narrate as we went through photographic albums and talked about the stories and added more context and provided a background to it. So a lot of the time we don't have that anymore when it is so just on your digital technologies and you're sharing images with each other. So you're missing that kind of story, I believe, with it. So that's the work down there really is kind of that connection between the narrative and the story and where we go from here. So the 2 larger components of my work, I suppose, which have been taken up a lot of the time, is the photo media installation here, created from around 3,000 slides, even though it doesn't particularly like that many in my mind. But yeah, so there's 3,000 slides there and a multi-panel projection installation that I've reproduced from my family VHS home movies. So I'll start with this work right here. And so to produce this work, I scanned in all my family negatives, printed them onto acetate and sandwiched them into new slides. I underestimate a lot of lighting difficulties with slides. They're very difficult, you know, there's something that you're going through and you want images. So for me, that's something that for my last work, I'd really like to experiment more with. And also the mirrors and the reflective surface, and basically how to negotiate that lighting to really bring the audience in. So as I worked in this space, I was able to respond to the site-specific nature of installation and play around with the incorporation of new elements that I had not considered prior. The live feed on the wall interplays with the idea, so hopefully I'll walk you through it, yes, interplays with the idea of multiplicity. Alongside the mirrors, the audience become very aware of their bodily engagement and participation within the work. The acrylic mirrors have become a fundamental component, whereby the mirrors not only enhance this multiplicity and illusion of quantity of slides, but it also suggested virtual reality due to the visual perception mirrors that allude to a reflection that isn't real. The city-like structures were not intentional at the beginning of this work, but they can be read as architectural references to place, house, or collective memory. The time-lapse shown at the front of the gallery is designed to document my experimentation with this work. I found this aspect really extremely useful. I'm sure I will as I go down the track. But to be able to review the decisions I've made and why I've made them, and then perhaps look at it from a new angle and see what I didn't see at the time when I was in the space. So yeah, that basically sums up this particular work. And then my last work, which I don't think we'll go into because it's very dark, but basically you can go in afterwards and view the projection room if you haven't yet. So it's a multi-panel projection installation. It employs digitally edited VHS movies. They were predominantly taken by my father between 1985 and 1996. The celluloid tape of VHS is fragile and has deteriorated over time. To edit these videos, there's been a constant transferring of mediums between software, devices and technologies, which highlights again the rapid progression of technology and the constant need to continually update the platforms of our archives to avoid them becoming outdated and obsolete. The bulkiness of VHS cameras provide the owner with less ease to be able to stop and start the recording, and therefore we are left with some raw and unfragmented footages of family life. Both the filming and the viewing of home movies define the relationship between operator and the spectator. The circle format breaks away from the constraints of the standard viewing experience of rectangular screens and positions the videos through a new lens, almost as if it's a new extension of the preceding recording. As these projected fragments of footage move around the room, they change shape and size, emphasising the ephemeral and transient nature of memory and the materiality used to record and store those memories. So home movies constitute an archive of imagery that is never complete. It's always fragmented, as footage skips from minutes to years. We are left with gaps that need to be filled in by the viewer. Sharing mundane activities of everyday life, such as cooking a big dinner, to a public network where a family and friends is far from unusual in today's reality of social media networks. On the contrary, my own family's VHS home footage was only ever intended to be viewed in our family home or sent to family members overseas. They were valued as private objects, selectively shared to the public world. The integration of these activities into everyday life has shifted the social use of photography from family to individual use, from memory tools to communication devices, and from sharing memory objects to sharing experiences, as Jose Van Dijk suggests in her book, Ubiquitous Photography, one word I can never particularly pronounce. This work has always intended to be displayed as a multi-panel projection. I believe that in closing the projection space, it embodies and engages the viewer into the work. The speed of the footage has been altered down to 25% and taken advantage of the technical mishaps from the VHS tapes to illuminate their material qualities. However, when working on this piece and by repeating segments over and over again, in order to choose which ones to incorporate, I became extremely interested in the audio captured through these videos and believe they also constitute a significant part of this work. We're so reminded visually of the past, yet I wasn't prepared for the emotional charge that the audio provided. These snippets of my father calling my name or seeing him appear behind the lens is rare, and I've capitalised on those aspects in this piece to reinforce those forgotten elements of memory transcribed in tangible format thanks to technology. So that's just kind of a brief overview of all the works, and now I'd just like to throw it over to you guys. If there are any questions or further questions about the work, then we can go through those. So let's short and sweet. That projection, I added really just to add this illumination of the lights through the slides. That was one aspect of it. The second of it was to, I really liked the way that the reflections on this wall happened, and at night you can see a lot more of the images moving around the room. So just that throw of projection, and just to play around with the digital component, the objects, moving with the digital projection. So really just a way for me to add a bit of like dynamics to it as well, I suppose, and that really just the light is playing around with that for me as well at the moment, and add some kind of...
Are the images that you've overlaid?
Yeah, everything here is from my family archives, so all my videos, all family photos. Yeah, these ones are 2 videos. This was the very first video work before I moved into the circle kind of projections. I was just doing using the full rectangular frame. So yeah, a lot of these are the two videos overlaid over each other from tapes. So, and some of them converted to black and white, and just playing around with the old views of it.
How do you parents feel about the private?
I think they all feel okay. We can ask one now. But yeah, I think they.
It's been an interesting topic, really, because I've been hearing a lot from Emily about what is to be shared, and we all have to sign the ethics commission.
Yes.
The interesting area really was, I guess, in terms of my mother, Alzheimer's, and my brother-in-law, power of attorney, granted that ability, and we firmly believe that my mum is so interested in the work that Emily does, and even though she wouldn't be at the moment fully understanding, but she would partly celebrate.
Yeah. She wouldn't mind her objects being laid out. So yeah, I think it's.
There's an aspect of it too that reinforces the nature of some of Emily's work, in that Emily's brother was very concerned about a lot of that physical material coming
Over here, yeah.
from the side of the country across here.
Yeah.
And will I see it again? Will I have access to it again? And it really reinforces that difference now. Photos that are taken now, everybody's going to copy the kids.
Yeah.
Whereas this physical medium is so valuable in that sense.
Yeah, definitely. That was really interesting to see. And this, where they would go, and that precious nature of them, really. So yeah, that's been very interesting process to see. So yeah, more of that regard than the actual what's being produced from the work. I think it was, yeah.
So did that decision made you decide to actually take copies of the slides rather than use them?
Yeah, no, it's all I've become quite the archivist in what has been, produced in our family now. So a lot of it has transferred onto digital copies. I've sent, my brother's photos of all the slides that scanned in when I was doing it and reproduced. So yeah, none of the actual, originals have been used in except for scanning in really from that. So which also, excuse me, brings up a whole